And here we go. Hey everyone, how's it going? It is I, the real Randy Chavez. I'm coming at you today with a big, fun podcast with Jason Naylor. You guys know him. You've seen him at Sanjay's parties, at the VeVe stuff, and he's about to have something really cool over on VeVe. Everybody say Herodashi. Herodashi. So we were just talking about about free meals, Veterans Day, and ripping toilets. That reminds me of something that I've seen. I think it was on Jackass, where they did some type of art where the guys all gave each other like enemas, and then it was like colored enemas, and then they exploded, and then I don't know, whatever they exploded out on the canvas became like art. Have you ever experimented with discussing things like that?
So, I mean, it's funny because you legit just asked me if there's anything to avoid. And the irony of this thing is that the one thing that I don't like to joke about is bathroom humor.
Okay. That was my bad.
I fucked that up. That's my bad. But I'll answer the question. Like, I have never done anything like that because I don't like bathroom humor. So it's like, for me, I'm not going to fuck with that for my art. It's two different worlds.
So any art that doesn't necessarily come from like talent, like going over and just having fun, like, okay, we're gonna jump off of this beanbag chair onto these tubes of paste and then watch that type of stuff like explode onto a canvas. Whatever happens.
Yeah. I mean, I think that shit is great. Like there are a lot of artists who that's their shtick, and I think the reason it matters is because part of the shtick is the entertainment. You know, it's like people are there for the art, and the final product may be interesting or beautiful, but they're more there for the entertainment. Yeah. And so for me, like, I think that I would like put that into a category of like performance art, you know, because the process of getting the thing completed, that's what people watch. Like, that's a performance, and performance art is a very like respectable category of art. So I'm here for it.
Cool. I remember in one episode, I think it was of Doug. You ever watch that back in the day on Nickelodeon?
Oh my God, yes. Weird TBT.
So, wait, you did what?
I did watch it. Yeah, I know.
Okay, yeah. So there's one episode where either he or Judy is in like this competition, and Porkchop is his dog is like chasing like this raccoon, and you see like dog prints and raccoon prints over on like the canvas, and that's the thing that like wins the competition. Mm-hmm. Does stuff like that ever like piss you off? Be like, dude, I'm slaving away like 18 hours a day on this, and I get third, and this freaking thing, it takes like 2 seconds, requires no talent.
I mean, that can bother me, I guess, but like, I think it's like the playing to the audience. You know, the best art is not the one that pleases the audience per se, but then it brings up an interesting topic, which is then what is the best art? Because then you could argue that the one that people like most, the one that has the most mass appeal, maybe that is the best. But it's an interesting conversation. And I think when there's a competition, if you lose or if you get third and you put all your love into this thing, chances are you're going to be kind of bummed or pissed or whatever. Yeah. But, I think there's a place for like playing to the crowd.
Do one of you play to the crowd? Give me an example. Is it the thing that you're doing on VeVe? Is it something different?
Well, so I just I competed in Secret Walls. And if you don't know what that is, it's an art battle that tours around the world. And they did the battle in New York recently. And so a friend of mine and me and my friend were one team, and it's a duo. And then we battled against these other two guys. And the strategy, both teams tend to go out this thing with the strategy of like, how can we poke fun at our opponent? Like, how can we like play against each other to entertain this crowd? Because this crowd is there to watch this piece of art unfold, and you have 90 minutes to paint. And so in 90 minutes, like, can you paint a masterpiece? I mean, arguable. In 90 minutes, what can you do to excite the audience to where they're gonna scream for you at the end? Because that's how the winner is determined. And so my friend Ross and I, who were painting together, we focused on trying to understand like what the guys next to us were doing so that we could put it into the art in like a mocking tone and style. And meanwhile, they had come at us with this like concept, which is all around, because the open heart is a big part of my brand, obviously. And they came with this concept of these two hands like tearing open my open heart and all this shit spilling out of it. And so like the final piece of art was not the point. The final product was the crowd had a fucking good time for an hour and a half, and like we played to the crowd, and that was the goal.
That is really cool. That's really deep, going and be like, okay, two hands ripping it up and have the heart opening up.
Yeah,
the Mr. MC one. They did. Oh, they did.
Yeah, but it was fun, and like I think that's a good example. It's a perfect example, since we're talking about this, of like the final art not being the point of it, and just like playing to the crowd and doing something fun and entertaining, and like getting people out there to drink and scream and like have a good time. And then at the end, there's a fucking piece of art, you know.
Where was this? I know you said it was like for a while you guys are doing this. I'm guessing it was like different cities and different places.
Yeah, I mean, so it tours around from city to city, but then when they get to each city, they choose a few artists to participate, to battle. So this was in New York, in Manhattan, at this venue downtown. But it happens, for example, in Miami during Art Basel, they'll do another battle. And so potentially I'll be battling in that battle. But it's if you don't know about Secret Walls, like it's definitely something to check out. It's super interesting. And they've made this brand of like, engaging artists to battle against each other. And then the aesthetic of it is interesting because it's all black and white. So for me, like my work is like full send color, but when I'm battling, at Secret Walls, I have to paint in black and white. And that's its own challenge for me.
Yeah, that is, I guess, a good way to test yourself. When is Art Basel?
First week of December.
Okay, let me see where I'm doing with that. I have I'm so sad you're not going to DeCon. That'd be so much fun.
I know. I mean, it's just like everything, it didn't quite fall into place.
Yeah. Because that is when's your art coming out on VeVe? And we'll get more on that in a second, but just want to know the date real quick.
Yeah, so it drops during DeCon.
Okay, so that's soon. It's like a couple days. All right.
It's a couple days, yeah. It's this weekend. So I think I'm not gonna provide specifics about the time of the drop and everything.
Okay, yeah. Well,
like follow along with DeCon, and then that's where you get the info. And I have the info, but I just want to leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll let VeVe announce that. We'll let DeCon announce that, whichever. Or let's see if it's on the app yet. Sometimes they do it like a week prior. They don't. Actually, they do have it. So they actually just put it up like 10 minutes ago.
Oh, sick. VeVe. Yeah, well played.
So it is. So I guess there's two of them. There's the deconstructed idol.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I'm sorry. This is not yours. Disregard. Okay. There's a different one. There's a different.
I was like, all right.
It looked all colorful, and I thought it looked like a heart, but it is not, and I'm an idiot. So when we get this, or talking about it, what was going through your mind when you thought of the open heart? I know this wasn't directly just for VeVe. I mean, I know you tweak it every now and then. Yeah. But when you first thought of it, what was going on in life?
Well, open heart has been like kind of its own little journey, and it started when I was painting this mural that says "All you need is love" in Brooklyn, and I painted this heart. There was like a spot in the design where like it needed something, and obviously the heart seemed right because of the message of the mural. And so I painted this heart, and then it looked too flowery for me, and the design of the piece was kind of flower power-ish because it was a Beatles lyric, Yeah. So I painted this kind of flowery looking heart, but the truth is like it's important to me to bring edge to my work. Like the work has like color and brightness and positivity, but there's edge to it. And generally the way I do that is by adding black, around it or in it. And so I painted this heart, and I didn't like it, so I painted a little black heart on top of it. And I loved the way it looked, so I kept painting it in other applications. And then over time, I branded it. And just this came from sort of like me talking about the heart itself. But I realized that the heart had kind of unfolded itself to be this open heart. And the reason it was open is because there's an opening in the middle of the heart. It's not a hole in the heart, it's an opening. And there's room in that opening for more love. And so every time I paint this open heart, the concept is I'm creating a space for more love. And the reason for that is that the more love that you give, the more love you have for yourself. And that's been an ongoing theme in my work. So long story short, the open heart is about spreading love, and it's about making room for other people and for opening your mind and opening your arms to different people. It's all about having this openness, and that comes down to love. So that's the concept for Open Heart. From there, it turned into its own thing where I started making toys and sculptures and painting murals just with the heart. And like, it kind of has its own brand now, which is great because when you recognize the little character, like, you know that comes from my murals and my work, but it has its own little life.
I feel like it's really hard it's easier to act loving and love someone else than it is to love yourself. Because like if you have like a dog, okay, got to get them like really good food, got to take this dog on walkies multiple times a day. But when it comes to at least my own personal life, give me these Cheez-Its, give me the stuffed crust pizza. I don't want to do cardio, and it's just that gets hard. I like that quote. What year did you come up with it?
2017.
Okay, so it's been an ever evolving process. Each time.
It has, and also like the concept I've refined the concept of it, which is kind of the easy part. The challenge is to keep painting the heart and designing it and putting it in applications that I'm excited about. And so it's had like a pretty big visual evolution, like from where it looked like when I started to kind of what it looks like now. That's the thing that I keep changing, but the concept is just refining itself.
I feel like love is in a couple of is a theme in a couple of the art things that you do.
Yeah.
Why love? Why do you feel so strongly about it?
Well, it's basically I've been trying to put myself into the work, and I've always agreed with this concept, in art, that you should paint or you should create work that's based on what's inside you and who you are and what you love. And so some artists like do work about skateboarding or whatever because they love skateboarding. But for me, as I began my journey years ago, like thinking about what really matters to me, I realized like I don't have this like hobby that I want to paint about. I actually have a personality that I think I want to paint about, and that's my personality is I'm very like loving and open and positive, and I have my days of being cranky, like don't get me wrong, but like generally I'm a very upbeat, like happy person. And if you hang out with me for a while, like you'll know like I'm kind of a like pile of bubbles. And so I think the point was to make work that reflects who I really am, and I'm like I love candy and like sweets and cereal, and like it all kind of plays into this thing that I love, which is like happiness.
There's a photo, and it's from an actual episode of Pokemon. I don't know if you ever watched or played the game. It's a starter Pokemon, Totodile. It's a little water crocodile, and it's big evolved form for alligator. Mm-hmm. And the caption is like me doing something for my inner child that I would have loved when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you do that a lot, or at least that's how I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah, and I mean, we all have that in us.
Yeah. Have you? Sometimes do you ever still feel like it? There's sometimes I feel like I'm like 16 still, just playing video games and chilling with friends. Do you still feel like a kid a lot of times?
I think I'm 21 at all times.
So you still feel like that kid?
Yeah, I do. And I'll give you an example. I have this tradition that I call a sweetathon, and I love candy and cereal and sweets, but I try not to eat them because I'm trying to be healthy and take care of myself and my body. But I allow myself every holiday to have a sweetathon. So like, for example, obviously 2 weeks ago, I had this massive pile of all the Halloween candy that I want to eat. And like, I had like the Frankenberry and the Blueberry cereals, and I spent the day just like eating the candy and enjoying it. And then when it's done, the sweetathon is done, then I go back to like eating healthy and working out. But I give myself those days, a couple times a year to just enjoy that shit because I like it, but it's terrible for me.
Yeah. I saw Instagram post in the gym this morning, getting that bread.
Yeah.
How liberal are you with the holidays? Like, do you like, oh, it's Guy Fawkes Day, let's load up on the sweethearts? Or is it like kind of the major ones?
I like your attitude, actually. That's kind of funny. Because it's like you could get on the like Google like Instagram holidays calendar because you're looking for like what content to make. There's a holiday every fucking day, dude. Like, no, I'm pretty strict to like, Christmas, Halloween, my birthday, Easter, Valentine's.
Oh yeah, when is your birthday?
July 14th.
Oh, okay. All right. So you got so you have 4th of July and then 10 days later you got that. Okay. So you got a couple of them in there.
Yeah, I mean, July is kind of just like it's one, it's one, but like it basically results in maybe like 6 or 7 times a year.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
You still give yourself a little bit. That's nice.
Yeah.
When you go and talk about this, so the idea for the open heart came in 2017, but your idea for love, is that something that like Selena Gomez, is that something that came naturally? Or is that something that like, well, I was always just kind of normal, but then after like some psilocybin or like LSD, it opened my mind and heart that way? Or what, again, was it more natural?
Oh, interesting. I mean, no, I don't like to give credit to substances, for my work. And not to say that I am not like every other person and enjoy engaging in that kind of stuff, but like I don't feel like I've ever been the person who's like, I need to get stoned so that I can create, like
Yeah.
I think it comes from my creations, and not to discredit anybody who uses whatever they want to use to do whatever they want to do. Like,
Me.
but the point is like, everyone should have their own formula for their creation, and mine doesn't include substances.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you can do that. Normally, just be your normal self and create.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of times I like to have a little drink when I go and I make a video or talk with people.
Yeah.
And those marathons, like the 24, 48-hour streams, I can't do that without help. I just don't have it in me.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I mean, I think that's, it depends on like where you are, like, and how you're creating, and if like for me, a lot of my creations happen on my iPad while I'm
ooh,
sitting on the sofa, like with the TV on or something.
yeah.
And so it's kind of like I'm in my little bubble. And when I'm painting, like that's like a flow state, and I'm not saying I can't paint with substances, but I'm just saying I don't need them. And so if I'm painting, like generally that's kind of its own high for me, if
Yeah.
and that's why I like to use spray paint. Like spray paint is this magical tool that kind of gets me high, and not literally because I'm breathing it, although possible. But like the flow state for me comes while I'm spraying, and like I can party after. It's fine.
So I've experimented with some AI, both in like literature and writing, but also art. And there are some weird ones that I've seen on like TikTok where like, hey AI, draw like a cat. And it's like, but make it more cat-like. And then they do this like 8 times, like make it even more cat. And it automatically, for whatever reason, after the third or fourth time, regardless whether you have cat, whether you have person, whatever, it brings it to space. So it seems that AI is like somewhat limited in its creativity, where it can create any one thing, but if you ask it to do it like again, it just brings it to space. There's stars, there's universe and stuff. What do you think the limitations are of AI? What do you think about it? Do you like it? Is it something that you can get ideas from?
Yeah, I mean, well, I love it. I think it's exciting, and I love technology, so it's natural for me to welcome new technology, and I like to fuck with it. I can't rely on it that much as a tool. I've tried to make my own art with it, and that just it does go to space, and especially if I try and feed it my own work, and like it's very complicated. So to use it as a tool for me, I don't see it that valuable. Like it's not there yet. I have used it effectively in like ideas for things, for example, on a pitch where I needed to render like comic book style lettering, but with my own messages. Like I could have drawn those out and would have taken me a couple hours, but I was able to use AI to just make them, so it's like take a comic book reference and take some of my own quotes and like merge them. Like AI can do shit like that. And so there are moments when it is helpful, but I mean, I think it's great. And like, I don't think people should feel like fear or concerned about it. I think they should like evaluate the role that it's going to play in their future and like invest in figuring out how to make it a part of their path. Artists are doing that, because artists are just fucking around with it.
You said that you have fed it your own art. Have you asked it to say like, hey, here's all pieces by Jason Naylor, paint something else in the perspective of Jason Naylor? Like, have you asked it to do like try to paint as if it was you?
Yeah, that's sort of the I did this project actually last year with the One Club, which is an advertising club in New York City. And they asked 100 artists to try and use AI to make their own work. And then we all got on panels and talked about it. And it was not super successful for me because I kept telling it like, make this design in the style of Jason Naylor or act as Jason Naylor to create this and this and this. And like, just like you're saying, it just couldn't do it. So what happened for me in the end was I got this thing we had to like record all our prompts, obviously. And so I got this thing like close to what I wanted, and then I just redrew the whole thing. And so the result of that exercise, and this is what we talked about on the panel, was it seems like there's like you're on the edge of it being helpful. But in the end, if I would have just sat down and drawn the thing I wanted to draw, it would have taken me a third of the time.
Yeah. No, it'll get there one day. For what I like to use it for, it's pretty nice. I'll just be like, have Cartman sing like Every Time We Touch by like Cascada. And for me, that's enough. Mr. MC1, shout out to him for, and shout out to you for coming to the parties, doing the giveaways. My friend Ernie bought some socks from you. He really enjoys those.
Hell yeah.
Mr. MC1 saying, what are some artists that you have collabed with, and what are the type of artists, what type of artists do you look for when you collab?
Well, a lot of my collaborations have been with other muralists. And so, I mean, the biggest thing, and I'll talk about brands too, because I collaborate with brands a lot. And I think that's an interesting part of the conversation. But I think the key for me is aligning on your values. The style doesn't have to be the same. Like if you're going to collaborate with somebody, the thing that matters most is, what is it like to sit down and have coffee with them? Or like when you talk about your work, are you aligned in what's important about your work? Because if you're aligned with your values, it'll be easy to collaborate. Yeah. And if it's about the aesthetic, then working with them may not generate anything interesting, even if your aesthetics supposedly would look good together. So I've found the best collaborations happen when the aesthetic is actually kind of different and the values align. So I've done that a lot with other muralists, and I've done some like NFT collaborations with other artists, and working digitally is always easy because you can just share files, but it still, to me, is about like, what are the values? And then I think rather than naming names of like artists that I've collaborated with, I think I would like to just take a second and talk about collaborating with brands, because I do that a lot. And that's an interesting collaboration as well, because what they're bringing to the table does have a creative position, and what they expect from me is my own creative position. But that can be a little bit more complicated because there's expectations. When you collaborate with an artist, like the result, in a way, unless you're trying to sell as an NFT, like the expectations are not necessarily that great. But if you're working with a brand, there's like money invested on the line. There's advertising, there's marketing, there's objectives, and there's generally multiple people that are serving as the collaborator. And so working with brands, for me, which I've done a lot of, has taught me, I think, to find like humility in my process, to where I'm able to like let go of certain things creatively or aesthetically in order to like meet in the middle. And that, I think, is the biggest reward that I've found in the work that I do, because learning how to actually collaborate, learning how to meet in the middle, and sometimes even shift or sacrifice your goals a little bit, like that's been a huge like rewarding process for me.
That's cool. There's that reminds me of a collab we saw earlier this year. I don't know if you like rap or not. There's this rapper named Tom McDonald, and his views are a little bit more, well, his views are one way, and Ben Shapiro, who's like this Jewish guy, like political commentator, he like kind of craps on rap all the time. They're like, oh, it's nonsense. But they did like a collab earlier this year of like Ben Shapiro rapping, because like their views are the same. Yeah. But on the opposite end of that, I feel like sometimes the yin and yang, or that contrast, like if you have somebody that maybe had opposite, I guess, views, and you did like one half and the other person did the other half, I think that would be cool. Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought of that?
I actually talk about that a lot with one of my good friends who's an artist. It's the same artist that I mentioned who battled with me in the Secret Walls. Excuse me. The yin and yang that we talk about is actually, it's a motif that appears in his work a lot, and his work focuses a lot on like the duality of life, so light and dark and good and evil. And my work is very single track. I don't necessarily focus on the dark side of life. But then if we've talked about doing a collaboration where the yin and yang is actually the piece of art, and we fill it with, you know, our motifs and everything. So I think it's interesting that you brought that up, because that's kind of on the books. Like, we're not sure where we'll do that, but I think it will happen because we do a lot of painting together.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I think there's I think it's Natsuki Takaya. She said, for there to be light, there has to be darkness. I'm not saying that. I think General Iroh in Avatar says that if you look for the light, you can often find it. But if you look for the dark, that's all you'll ever see.
Yeah.
So I definitely like to focus on the light and good.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes one sense of romance can be a little dark. I like horror. I like America. I like violence sometimes. You know, I like shoot 'em up. But yeah,
I mean, first of all, those are two really good quotes. The concept of the first one, like, you can't understand light without the darkness. I use that in talking about my work a lot, and that's part of like why there's black in my work. Like, there's a balance of light and dark in my work, and color and black. And I don't like to focus on why the black is there. I like to focus on why the color and the light is there. But it wouldn't even look colorful necessarily if you didn't have black, you know, and it wouldn't feel bright if you didn't know what it felt like, you know, to be dark. And like, if you put a positive message on a mural or in your work, or like open heart, if you don't know what it's like to feel sad or unloved, then that message won't resonate nearly as hard.
Yeah, you appreciate it more when you had a little bit of the break. I think a lot of artists have as well. Which this is a quote I want to bring up from Ernest Hemingway, where he says, "The best people possess a feeling for beauty, the courage to take risks, and the discipline to tell the truth, and the capacity for sacrifice. Ironically, their virtues make them vulnerable, and they're often wounded and sometimes destroyed."
Yeah.
Did you have to be destroyed a little bit to be this awesome?
Yeah, like, bro, you just described me in my life. Yeah, that's interesting, but I do agree with that. I think the best people have gone through the worst shit, and like, that's a dumbed down way to say it, but like, I've been through a lot of dark things, including like a huge personal revolution, which is me leaving Mormonism, which is a religion that I was given and raised with until I was 21, basically, and then I had to like build my own exodus from that. And so that took years, you know, to actually like rebuild and like rediscover myself, and like allow myself to be my actual self instead of be this thing that religion had programmed me to be. So, and I could talk more about that if you want, but that's one thing in my life that's been a dark part of the journey that I think fuels like who I am today, you know, and including like just me saying like, I'm a very happy guy. I have not always been. So like, I think that's, you know, you speak truth, and what you say, what he says resonates.
Yeah, I've noticed that before with a couple of friends growing up, where it's like some of the friends that I had that were cool, but they're just like, every now and then they had I don't know, it's like, oh man, you kind of talk a different type of way to your parents. You're a little spoiled. And then some of my friends that just like got the crap beat out of them, they're just like the best, most respectful people ever.
Mm-hmm.
I know a couple of practicing Mormons right now, and they're like that South Park episode. I don't know if you ever seen that episode where and they're just like nice people. That's how they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious how and why you left. What was like the decision? Was there like a straw that broke the camel's back? Was it just years of disagreements with certain philosophies? Very curious about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a journey, because when you're born into something, you don't think about why you're there, or you don't even think about maybe the things that you're being taught. Like, you just learn from your parents, right? But at some point in life, you have to start thinking for yourself, and you may question things that you've been told. And that could happen when you're 8 years old. You know, you start saying like, why is this? And like, it doesn't compute. But like, as you get older, and like through my life, behind the scenes of like living this life of going to church every Sunday and following all the rules, which there are a shit ton of them in Mormonism, I began to like question, like, is that really a thing? And so then I went on a mission, which is what you do at age like 18 to 20.
Yeah.
And basically you go and like preach about Mormonism, you know, to somebody basically in another place. Like for me, it was in Brazil. So I went to Brazil for 2 years and like taught other people about Mormonism. But in order to teach somebody about something, you have to know about it. And so I actually began, in order to do it, I began to really study, and this is part of the program when you're being a missionary, but I began to study the actual doctrine of Mormonism. And the more that I studied it, the more I started to be like, I don't like that doesn't add up. That doesn't track with what I think or what I actually believe.
Yeah.
And so after that, when I returned from Brazil, I'd been away from my family for 2 years. I felt like I needed to like figure out what I actually believe, because I had been just preaching the thing that I was supposed to believe, but I actually didn't believe it. And so then I had to start this journey of like, who am I? What do I actually want and believe? And what do I do about it? Because I have to, get out of this thing that is now on my back.
Yeah.
So, it's a complicated long ride, and like, so it's funny because like trying to summarize the whole thing into like 5 minutes is like, there's so much shit to say about it. But yeah.
Has that part of your journey or your life journey ever shown up in your art?
Yeah. I mean, I think not specifically, but I think if you go back into my sketchbooks, like when I was in my 20s, like, I moved to New York, like early 20s. And then for the next 5 or 6 years, like New York was this playground for me to discover who I actually am. And what I loved about New York, I grew up in Utah. And what I loved about New York was that it didn't matter what you look like or what you do or who you are, because like in contrast to Utah, everyone is kind of expected to dress the same and look the same and be nice and act the same, and I'm here for the positive parts of that, like the kindness, lead with kindness, that's a value for Mormonism. So the doctrine didn't work for me, but the values over the course of my 20s, trying to figure out who I was or am, the values remained. But if you look at my art, there's none of the values, which now you see in my work, like it's family values, like on murals, right? But the values remained. But in my work then, it was just this dark, scratchy, like evil, exploring like evil and like all these things. And like the sketchbooks are really fucking cool. They don't look anything like the work that I do now.
I would love to see those.
Yeah.
Next time I'm in New York or next time, maybe.
I'm just hoarding them because I know that there will be a time in life when I unveil like all the art from my 20s, which only lives in like sketches and drawings and stuff. Like
I hope
those
you have them in like safe.
Hit, someday when I'm ready.
I hope you have them in like floor safes or fireproof safes at the bank. Because like God forbid that art gets destroyed. Like,
yeah, that's a good thought. They're just in like a storage unit.
Yeah. I mean, even those can flood. I mean, I'm fireproof safe at the bank, something like that. Yeah. So it reminds me of you ever watch the George Lopez show back in the day?
I have, yeah. I mean, a couple times.
There was the daughter Cameron. She like got to decorate her room, and she had this like half of like a witch doll like cut in half and put it like on the outside. She's like, that's me trying to escape, and that's my spirit. And like half of her was out, but half of her was being held back. I was like, whoa, yeah. Reminds me of your story a bit.
Yeah, it's deep. I mean, it's also like it's a gimmick for the thing, but it's also that's an interesting piece of art right there that she made.
Yeah. You mentioned brands before. Obviously, one of the brands to be on is VeVe. How did you guys approach each other? I think that was going on for a few years, right?
Yeah. So VeVe, I mean, the original conversations began with 3D Retro and DeCon, because I had partnered with 3D Retro to create the first open heart figurine. And so then and it took a long time because we began talking about the figurine like right before the pandemic. And so it actually took a couple of years to get the figurine from me to like, real life. And it doesn't necessarily take that. You can do it in 6 months now or before, but like the whole thing took 2 or 3 years. But all that to say, during those 2 or 3 years, the NFT market began to explode. And so kind of 2 years into like, hey, this physical figurine is coming soon. Should we also do an NFT with it? And there's this brand called VeVe, which you should meet. And like it turned into this like, let's build this thing with VeVe. And then I don't know what happened in between. This was like 2 years ago now. So in between, in the last 2 years, I think VeVe just exploded with so many other things that they were doing, and then obviously the undulate nature of crypto kind of led us to like finally a couple of weeks ago. One of the guys from 3D Retro circles back and is like, "Hey, homie from DeCon, let's talk about your VeVe drop." And I'm like, "All right, let's let's do it," because I kind of forgot about it,
Yeah, so much stuff. I mean, they've been very busy with a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
They opened a whole new comic book shop. I don't know how they did that. Where Marvel said, like, yeah, you can sell all of our new comics that are hitting the shelves as NFTs the same day that they hit the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't call it Marvel Comics, they call it VeVe Comics, which is heckin' wild. They had that, obviously onboarding other brands. But that's cool. Like you're shoulder to shoulder now with the likes of Marvel and Disney and MGM and Aston Martin.
I'll take it.
Is there any? Do they let you say like, oh hey, could you ask them, be like, hey, you guys have contacts like Aston Martin? Can I like have that to do a collab with them? Are you allowed to do that, or do they just keep everything separate?
I'm not sure what I'm allowed to do, but I'd rather shoot my shot and ask for something like that and have them say you're not allowed.
Yeah.
So I don't really think about that. And like, if it's like VeVe has relationships with Aston Martin, for example, like I would love to paint a car, so let's talk about that. I painted a couple of cars. Like I painted a Lamborghini during Art Basel last year in Miami, and the painted Lamborghini has been like parading around Miami for the past year. So I'm
whose was that?
What's that?
The Lamborghini. Whose was it?
It was a private person that was just wanted to have the car painted.
Oh, that's so cool. So that's a true one of one. That's so freaking cool.
You could do. I mean, you could do it. We could do it with Aston Martin. So I would be. It's my nature to be like, okay, here are some of your partnerships, dear VeVe. Here are some of my ideas. Let's talk. And then if they're like, yeah, we can't do it, then I'm like, all right, well, whatever.
Yeah, I definitely have an idea about that. Mr. Armstrong, can you please talk about the murals, the first one, others you have done, how they've evolved, how they've changed?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just also want to take a quick second because since we're talking about the journey with VeVe, I just wanted to give a shout out to Sanjay because he all along during the ups and downs, he always has supported me and invited me to the events and to the parties. And so shout out Sanjay, big love, man. So talk about the murals, first one, others I have done. I mean, I've painted probably 400 to 500 murals at this point over the years. And the first one that I ever painted was in my studio in 2012, I think, maybe 2013, when I was starting out my artist journey as a solo artist. Before that, I worked as a graphic designer, and I had quit my design job, and I was just trying to do my own art. And I wanted to get into doing murals, and I didn't really know how to do that. So the first thing I did was to paint a mural on my actual property, right, in my apartment. And it was this sort of like this like flame of like colors and patterns, and the flame was coming out of this little skull's mouth. And at that point, there was still some of the darkness kind of living in my work. And so the concept for the mural was like, what does this skeleton have to say? And he's like screaming, and like what comes out of his mouth is all these flames. And some of the flames are filled with like these positive kind of shapes and things. And some of the flames are filled with like distress and torment. And like, it's kind of abstract, but that was the mural. And then from there, I stumbled upon this opportunity at South by Southwest for Microsoft. And I knew the girl who was doing production for this event at South by, and they had like a problem with their setup where the graphics that they had designed for the walls like didn't get printed right, and they had blank walls. And she was like, can you help me design something? And I was like, well, I could just paint a mural. And she was like, okay, awesome, let's do that. And so then that was my second mural. So I painted this mural, and it was like a fluke thing that worked out. And like I think it, I'm proud of myself for saying I can do this, because I actually didn't know how to do it. I had just done one on my own wall. But I said like, yes, let me paint a mural. And I created a concept, and Microsoft went for it. And then I found 3 people in Austin that could help me, especially one guy who was like a big muralist. And I talked to him and I was like, listen, I don't know how to design all this. I don't exactly know how to execute this. Can you help me? And I was able to pull off this like 20-foot mural during the course of South by Southwest. And it was the second mural I'd ever done. And so that was massive in terms of like injecting me into this position of saying, I'm a muralist. I'm like, check out the Microsoft mural that I just painted, you know? And from there, it just turned into like opportunities that began to present themselves until one day there was a mural contest in New York. And the prize for the contest, it was an art contest, obviously, is you get this wall in Manhattan. And it's an extremely like prime location in Manhattan. And I won the thing and got the mural. And then from there, it was like, if you have a mural, a permanent mural in Manhattan, like that's just like a next level thing. And so things just kept kind of spiraling upwards with that.
That's amazing. I love it when it spirals upwards. I love that type of stuff. When you were talking about that one piece of art where sometimes the flames would be filled with positive words and sometimes the flames would be negative, reminds me of a Pokemon episode where Ash is trying to like tame this Ponyta, and a lot of times whenever he tries to touch the Ponyta, the fire on the Ponyta burns him until Ponyta learns to trust him, and then the fire doesn't burn. I was like, oh, that's a really cool way that depending, I guess, on how you look at certain things, the fire can burn you or the fire can protect you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's like I love the like pulling the positive message out of a scene that has both. I think that's really sexy and inspiring.
It's like that Mr. Rogers quote where he says his mom told him, whenever there's disasters, look for the helpers, and there'll always be people helping. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Dude, you're good with quotes. I'm impressed.
Thanks. Yeah, but some of my subscribers have a drinking game where every time I make a pop culture reference that they take a drink, and sometimes it gets dangerous because it happens a lot.
I was about to say, so they're all pretty fucked up.
Yeah, a little bit. This has been great. Like I said, I do want to talk to you a bit off camera. Is there anything that you want to go over before we end it? Anything you want to plug, and where people should follow you?
Well, yeah, I mean, follow me if you're interested in following me, but I think it's the right thing to plug the VeVe drop, and a big shout to VeVe and to all the VeVe community. And like, I know it's a massive community of people that are invested in artists like me. And so let me just say thank you in advance to anybody from VeVe who's tuning into this. And then also like, let's make this drop go to the moon. And I'd love to get this out there to everybody. So let's go.
We'll be going to DeCon. There's like, I thought there was just gonna be like 7 or 8 of us. There's gonna be like 60 of us rolling in deep at DeCon.
Nice.
So we'll get that bread.
I'm so bummed that I can't be there to like hang with you guys and and like hype this thing, but
yeah, that'd be fun. Well, especially at I imagine you had your fair share of drinks at Sanjay's party, but at DeCon, a lot of the VeVe kind of treats the artists like gold. They'll be like, here, have a drink, and you get a little lit.
Next time, dude.
Next time we got this. All right, everybody, say bye-bye to Dashi. Bye-bye, Dashi. Thank you just for coming. And again, hang on while we go and talk off camera a sec.